That's a great question. You know, prior to coming to the State Department, I spent the last 10 years of my life working to bridge the digital divide. You know, I, like everybody else in the mid and late 90s, was witnessing this technology driven change in the way that we communicated and transacted business. And a handful of friends of mine and I in 2000 started a nonprofit called One Economy, the purpose of which was to connect people around the globe to these technologies. And we went from being four guys in a basement to actually being the world's largest digital divide organization. And one of the things that I've seen over the last 10 years, and again, this is working in the nonprofit sector, this is not working in government, is there is a very, very fast adoption of these technologies around the globe. Is it everywhere? No. But it's increasingly universal. One of the things that one of the important points that people need to bear in mind is that the way that people actually access the network in the developing world might be different than the way people in the United States are accessing the network. Of the 6 billion, there are 6 billion people on the planet, but there are also 4 billion mobile phones. So we can already see right now in the developing world, people are skipping sort of the desktop as the way in which they access the network, and they're accessing it directly on their handhelds. One of the places where I'm doing a lot of work right now is in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is one of the poorest places on earth. And one of the things that the State Department is hoping to do there is use telecommunications and use technology tools as a way of protecting women, particularly in eastern Congo, who are vulnerable to acts of extreme violence, of rape. And in examining the feasibility of this, you know, I said, oh, you know, it sounds great, but, you know, is that naive? You know, number one, can people use cell phones? Are they using them? What about literacy gaps? And one of the things that I learned was that today, at this moment, 50% of the country, and it is a massive country with a land mass equal to Texas and Alaska combined, 50% of the country right now is covered by a wireless signal. And 14 out of every 100 people in the Congo are already mobile phone subscribers. And one of the things that's different in the Congo, that's different in the United States, is in the United States, everybody has their own phone. But in the Congo, it's normal actually for 3 or 4 people to share the same phone. And so if you just do the math, all right, today, 14 out of every 100 people are mobile phone subscribers. If you assume that there are 3 users per phone, what that means is that today, without the United States doing a thing, 42% of the country are already on mobile phones. So in one of the poorest regions of the earth, the Congo, we already see that half of the people are connecting to the network. And so that for me is great affirmation that we should be pushing these technologies into the developing world. And further, we should be thinking about how 21st century technology can help solve some of our most intractable development challenges. And will there be places where we go where people simply aren't using cell phones, where there's no mobile coverage, where the literacy level is such that people just can't figure it out? Sure. But I think that instead of just waiting for the world to catch up, the United States can play a role in helping to lead. And so in looking at the Congo again, 50% of the country is covered today, but a study that I saw by Goldman Sachs said that by 2013, 88% of the country will be covered. So part of it makes sense to me for us to engage now while sort of the whole world is getting onto these technologies and figuring out now how we can use these technologies for economic and social good. I think that there is a lot of unintended paternalism when people think about technology. We oftentimes assume that people who are low income or people who are racial minorities are somehow not going to understand technology, and that we need to sort of parse out giving access to technology to people who are low income or people who are racial minorities. And I think that that is just completely contradictory to what actually all the data and evidence show, which is that it doesn't matter how much money is in your wallet. It doesn't matter from whence you come. Young people all around the globe right now have this incredibly intuitive understanding of technology and of its power. And so introducing technology into poor communities doesn't need to be done so paternalistically, because guess what? Within a couple days, those 15-year-olds are going to be way ahead of you. And so that's one thing that that is very important to me, is to take some of the paternalism that I think lives in a lot of our development practices and recognize that when it comes to introducing technology, when it comes to introducing innovation into poor communities, don't be too arrogant about it, because the folks there are going to be a lot quicker with it and a lot smarter about it than you in very short order. I think that there are a number of examples. One of the problems, particularly in the developing world, is the lack of medical workers. So you go into places of extreme poverty with enormous prevalence of disease, and you've got one or two healthcare workers literally trying to steward the medical interests of thousands of patients in need. So one way in which technology can play a good role, beyond just giving alerts, it's 12 o'clock, it's time to take the green pill. Another way is to actually push preventative information to people. So one of the examples that I've seen that's very, very compelling is for pregnant women, and pushing content to them by SMS about what are those things that can be done to ensure the health of the fetus, to ensure a healthy pregnancy. The thing that I think is more exciting, though, I've talked about push technology. What I think is more interesting and compelling than that even is being able to create some exchange. So right now, if there is a sorghum farmer in Mali, and that sorghum farmer has lost 50% of his crop, and he doesn't know why. Right now, the way in which we would provide aid to that farmer is some professor in Surrey goes to the airport in London, flies to Lagos, flies to Mali, gets in a Jeep, drives for 3 hours, looks at the crop and says, "Oh, this is what you've got." Today, there's no reason why that farmer shouldn't be able to take a video-enabled phone or a photo-enabled phone, take a dozen pictures of the crop, send those over mobile networks, send those by email to the professor in Surrey, and rather than the 3 airplane flights and the 3-hour Jeep ride and the $5,000 in expenses, that person can say, "Oh, this is the problem. This is what you do. Oh, and by the way, in the meantime, you've saved 2 weeks and another third of the farmer's crop." So a lot of what I'm interested in doing is figuring out how experts can connect to the agricultural world, can connect to entrepreneurs, and provide real-time technical assistance that's exchange rather than just pushing things, and rather than people having to physically be there, but create some virtual connections between people. Absolutely. Look, it would be completely naive of me to say, "Oh, here's the internet, here's 21st century technologies, kumbaya, democracy wins." That's not realistic. That's not the world that we're living in. I do believe that access to technology provides people with information that they otherwise wouldn't be getting. I think that expands their worldview. I think that young people growing up in Gaza today who can access the internet and can get information other than what they might be hearing from the mullah, do I think that is in America's foreign policy interests? Absolutely. All of that said, America's enemies, Al-Qaeda, those entities that want to destroy us, are sophisticated in their own use of technology, and they know how to use it for communication. They know how to use it for recruitment. I mean, you can go on the internet right now and Google a handful of terms, and you can see these recruitment websites. We've seen them do horrible things on the internet, where they will exploit people who they've captured and who they are torturing or killing. So this technology offers a universe of resources to everybody, and that doesn't just necessarily mean the good guys and that we all live happily ever after. Do I think that this is a powerful tool for social good, for economic good, and for democracy? Absolutely. But it would be naive of me and naive of anybody to simply say, oh, well, we can use this, they won't, and this is, we will win the war for people's minds and hearts, without any pushback by virtue of the power of these networks.